It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Mark Knauer, who will talk about pre-farrowing feeding strategies. Mark's a native of Wisconsin and did his bachelor's and master's at Iowa State, and then his PhD here at North Carolina State. Spent some time with the International Pig Genetics Institute, and then also Director of Animal Science for National Pork Board before he joined the faculty at NC State, where he's currently an extension specialist and associate professor leading our work in genetics and production management. So Mark, I will turn the floor over to you.
There it is.
Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to see you all here today. Thanks for coming. Really a great crowd we have here today. And as we said, we built in some opportunities for you all to network, because those are some important pieces that go on at meetings. So I'm going to talk for about 10 or 12 minutes here, and maybe time for a few questions, and we'll move on to Mahmood. Here's just a quick overview of the program. My program here at NC State. We have the ability to have genetic selection research lines. We're quickly becoming one of the only places in the world that has that type of capability out near Plymouth at the NCDA Tidewater Research Station. We currently have selection lines for a young age of puberty and another selection line for a number of functional teats. The age of puberty line is about 10 years old now, and we're starting to look at some underlying physiology. And there could be some pieces there related to this heat stress piece, as far as that younger puberty animal being more resistant or tolerant to heat stress when it comes to reproductive performance. On the left upper corner there is piglet nutrient access. This is a diagram we came up with a few years ago. Some people like to complicate survival. And it is a complicated process, but as geneticists, a lot of times we like to break things down into component type traits. And so in regards to piglet nutrient access, we think it's highly related to piglet survival. Obviously, there's other pieces that are important, keeping your farrowing room temperature the correct temperature, perhaps farrowing crate length, and other environmental components like that. But as far as the piglet getting access to nutrients, the last few years, we've always known number of functional teats is very important to everybody having a dinner plate in piglet survival, but I think we've done a good job validating the importance of number of functional teats on piglet survival. So as we see some of these new genetics come into North Carolina, we're going to see more functional teats on these gals, 15, 16, 17 functional teats, and that's going to help our piglet survival, especially as we push litter size up against the number of functional teats that sow has. Milk yield is certainly important. We haven't done a lot on the milk yield. Our particular lab, colostrum yield, in my opinion, colostrum yield, it's probably the 1,000-pound gorilla, right? We've increased litter size. We arguably haven't increased colostrum production. That sow doesn't magically make more colostrum if we have more pigs. So from a genetic and management standpoint, we've done some work in this area, but this is an area we're probably going to circle back to. Can we get more colostrum? Can we get better quality colostrum? Is that going to help us not only in piglet survival, but potentially in nursery survival as well? Piglet birth weight. There's a lot of talk on piglet birth weight and the detriment of low piglet birth weight. Well, I have good news for you. The genetic companies have been working hard on piglet birth weight. And if you haven't already, you're going to start seeing heavier pigs at birth coming through your production systems. In fact, in my opinion, I'm almost a little concerned about us swinging too far the other way, as far as make sure we don't get piglets too big. Because we select piglet birth weight on these maternal lines, but then we go and we made them to these Duroc sires that have extremely large birth weight. And so hopefully we don't go too far on the piglet birth weight piece. Piglet vitality is what I'll be talking about today. And we have some data, and I think there's some information out there in the literature that shows that that's potentially some low-hanging fruit. And then, of course, Sow body condition and management, perhaps the biggest part of our program here. At NC State, we invented, developed, and have implemented the sow body condition caliper across 39 countries across the world. So here again is the piglet nutrient access piece we're going to talk about today. Here's some data from several years ago when we started doing some of this colostrum work. Across the bottom axis is number of functional teats, and the side axis is piglet survival, is in the red line, and the blue line there is sow colostrum output. And so with more functional teats in the sow, I don't know if we necessarily know if that sow is producing more colostrum, but those pigs are able to harvest more colostrum with more functional teats. And so we see a nice trend with the increase of sow functional teats. There's increase in sow colostrum harvest and increase in piglet survival. So I know in your production systems, counting functional teats is hard. It's not easy. A lot of times people say they count functional teats, and we get on the farm and they don't necessarily count them. If you've ever done it, it's hard, it's not easy. And then you get into the fine details as what is a functional teat. Because you got a lot of teats that are about the same size, and then you'll have what we call like some substandard teats. Teats that are like 60 or 70% the size of a normal functional teat. So how do you classify those? And we've actually done some research here at NC State showing that those substandard teats, they might enhance piglet survival, which kind of makes sense because they're smaller, easier for that small pig to get on, but they may impede piglet weaning weight. So classifying those substandard teats can be a challenge. So today we're going to talk about piglet vitality. We think there may be some low-hanging fruit there. We've got some, hopefully some decent data to show you today. And out in the Midwest, you'll have some producers who are doing the 24-hour observation at farrowing. If I had to guess, in North Carolina, we're probably not going to go that route. So are there some strategies we can use in regards to how we feed these sows pre-farrow so we don't need as much labor to manage that farrowing house? So in regards to stillborns, what's possible? So stillborn percentage is on the side axis there. And on the far right, you see the industry average is somewhere around 7.3%. And this is a transition study we did a couple of years ago out at the Tidewater Research Station. We were trying to compare a transition diet and feeding a lactation diet the last week of farrowing. And as you can see, we weren't able to pick up significant differences because the stillborn rate was off the charts. And this was with no farrowing assistance. And so we're starting to try to peel back the layers and try to understand why we were so successful on that turn. And if we look, they were all parity 2 sows, which parity 2 sows are generally going to have better stillborn percentage than your other parity sows. And we housed them a little bit different. They were in pens and not stalls. They had more access to sunlight. We got the diets back. There's some differences in the diets. But I'm not saying we're going to get to 2% for an industry average, but I think a 4% or somewhere around there for stillborn average across the industry I think it's doable. Here's some data from PIC from Dr. Pedro Esquerra. Across the bottom is farrowing duration in hours, and across the side axis is stillborn percentage. And as you can see, there's a clear relationship between sow farrowing duration and how many stillborns that sow has. So can we shrink that farrowing duration? Can we reduce stillborns? That also gives pigs more fair access to colostrum at the same point in time. So farrowing duration it's hard to measure, but it's potentially an important piece of the puzzle. So based on some of the work done out in Denmark, Dr. Peter Thiel did an awfully nice job showing that as a sow farrows closer to the time that she had her last meal, she's going to have a reduced number of stillborn piglets. Well, some in the U.S. have done a nice job of expanding upon that. And here's a study from central Iowa. The stillborn percentage on the side axis. And then the first treatment here is they fed twice a day, 4 pounds total of feed. Here they fed 1 time a day, 4 pounds total of feed. And here they fed twice a day, 12 pounds total of feed pre-farrow. This would be kind of similar to like an ad-lib type situation. And so what they found here is they found about 3% difference in stillborn percentage, whether they fed twice a day or whether they fed once a day. Here's some data out of Missouri and Ron Ketchum, and this is across a 4,500 multiplication farm. And here's time across the bottom from September 27 to August 2020. Here's total number born is in the blue bars, is pretty consistent, and then stillborn here is in the red line. And you can see how they this is before and after data, but I think it paints a clear picture of how they're able to reduce stillborns. So here, the change here, they're at 7.9, 8.9% stillborns, and they dropped it down here to 4.5 stillborns. And here they went from feeding 1 time per day to feeding 4 times per day pre-farrow. And then here, they got kind of another step change starting here in March of 2019. They changed the timing, they spread it out, the 4 meals from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., and they saw another step change getting down to below 3% stillborns. Calcium chloride, a product that can be top-dressed pre-farrow, is also been shown to be successful in reducing stillborns. So here again, a stillborn percentage on the side axis. Here's an older study, 2005, 2003, and 2015. And then a more recent study here, just 2022. So if you take these 4 studies, average drop in stillborn percentage, 2.5% across those 4 studies. So what's 2.5% in throughput worth in your production system? We'll look at some numbers here lately about what it's potentially worth. So materials and methods, this study here we did at NC State was in last summer, commercial sow farm here in eastern North Carolina, PIC multi-pair sows, 215 sows. We fed 3 diets pre-farrow, and the sows received the diets for 1 to 6 days, depending on how long they were in the farrowing crate. And the treatments were 5 pounds once per day, 2.5 pounds twice per day, or 5 pounds once per day, top dressed with 50 grams of calcium chloride. And then we had students, one of them is in the audience today, Zach. Zach worked the night shift from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So this to get the farrowing duration, that data is not easy to capture. So if you're in there 24 hours at a time to get that farrowing duration. So, and the farm induced on day 115, and all the sows that were induced, those records were included in this analysis. So we just came in and applied our treatments right over their existing production system. We didn't ask them to change anything. So here are the results in relation to stillborns and farrowing duration. Here's farrowing duration. So here's farrowing duration, feeding once per day. Farrowing duration was up around 6 hours and 50 minutes. So feeding twice per day or top dressing with calcium chloride, both significantly reduced farrowing duration. And if we look over here in regards to stillborns and pre-farrow feeding strategy, we see an expected difference. Here we got 9.2% for feeding 1 time per day, a drop of about 2 percentage points in stillborns if we feed twice per day, and a drop in about 3 percentage points if we feed top dress the calcium chloride product. So replicating existing studies that have been shown to be successful, but then comparing 2 strategies, feeding twice per day versus top dressing calcium chloride, depending on your labor situation, you may want to choose one or the other. So let's talk about the profit opportunity. For the scenario here, We're gonna look at feeding 2 meals per day pre-farrow. And we're plugging in a reduction of 2% stillborn or top dressing calcium chloride pre-farrow. We're gonna say a 3% reduction in stillborn. So we take each one of those percentages times 15 total number born times 2.4 liters per sow per year. And we're gonna say a 85% survival rate on those stillborn piglets we kept, because obviously you're not going to save all of those stillborn those pigs that might have been stillborns till weaning. And I pulled that 85% actually from a production manager here in a production system in North Carolina. And I thought, as long as you have enough teats and colostrum, that's probably a good guesstimate, is just multiply that improvement in stillborns by your piglet survival number. And we're going to use $35 for a wean pig. So a 2,400 sow unit, if you can have a 2% reduction in stillborn by feeding 2 meals a day, that's $51,000 in income for that 2,400 sow unit. So that's taking, and your only cost would be your increased cost of labor. So can you get creative? We have a production system here, one in North Carolina, that was hiring high school students to come in and feed lactation diets at night so they could increase their lactation feed intake. Can you get creative for having people come in different times a day, or high school labor or college labor or your existing labor to figure out how to feed multiple times per day pre-farrow? Some are feeding multiple times pre-farrow in North Carolina. This one farm I'm working with, they have feed drop boxes. They drop feed twice a day, and then once they farrow, then they go to ad lib situation. So I think there's different things to do there. And of course, we know labor is an issue, but with this much money on the table, can we find creative ways to get it done? Another option we looked at was the top dressing calcium chloride. We assumed a 3% reduction in stillborn, 2,400 sow unit at $77,000 in income, but then you have to buy the calcium chloride product. Right now it's a little pricey, but there's still a good return on investment. But I think with the size of production systems we have here, if you go talk to these guys and you get some big volume, that price could potentially be adjusted. So in summary, reduced stillborns and reduced farrowing duration appear to be low-hanging fruit. There's current solutions out there as far as feeding multiple meals pre-farrow or top dressing calcium chloride pre-farrow. And in the future, what we'll continue to work on is how can we change our existing diets that we already have to reduce stillborns. So from an economic perspective and an animal well-being perspective, improving piglet survival is a good thing. So with that, thank you to the students that worked on the project, Zach and Brianna and Aoi and TDM and NCDA and U.S. Pork Center of Excellence for funding this project, and Hubbard Feeds for donating the product. And with that, I thank you for your time and I'd be happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.